Hello, this
Hello.
is Sammy Paul,
Uh-huh.
a filmmaker extraordinaire.
Oh.
We recently did a project together, what was called One Another.
Just commit to doing the whole thing.
That's on Sammy's channel now. You can click here.
Oh,
You're not moving out of the way.
sorry.
There, click here
There it is.
to have a look.
I recommend watching that before watching this.
But do definitely come back to this.
Yeah. Because I guess we will talk spoilers, right?
We're
just going to talk about it.
We're going to talk about the project, we're going to talk about the story, we're going to talk about everything.
Yeah. Alright, go do that.
Welcome back!
Hello.
You've seen the film, so you're ready for us to have a conversation. Sammy, why did you want to make this film?
Quite a while ago, I think post Blue Sushi, Bertie and I were chatting about a body swap that happened between a son and a father. This idea that we liked was that they just never swapped back. It was set way after the body swap. It was never anything to do with them realising and being whoa, I've changed. Because it's we've seen that a million times. But then I kind of started to look at it in different aspects, and I was like, well, what would the wife feel like? Would they have to well, they'd have to divorce, because that would be now his mum that he's technically married to, and he'd have to... And so there was all these elements, and so much of it was quite high concept sort of interesting stuff, but actually making that a story, I was I don't know why this begins somewhere and why this ends somewhere.
The nugget was kind of just in your mind, in the back burner of your creative mind for the longest time.
This is where you come in, and Dan had basically been look, I've done one or two monologues in the past, I want to do something more, and we kind of played with a few ideas. We looked at some sort of script stuff that existed already, but in the end we were let's just write something afresh.
We were going to write it together.
Yeah.
Sammy called me and sort of introduced me to this idea of the body swap and what that might entail, what that might do, and I was like, yeah, cool, that sounds good. And then I went to America for a month. While I'm out there, I just got... Yeah, so I've run away with the idea a little bit, and it's now a 15-page short film. I was
Yeah.
Okay, you can have that.
Essentially, because my background is in theatre, I... think often with a bit more of a theatrical head. A lot of theatre does have, the soliloquy in it and that kind of thing. So I was kind of maybe this would jigsaw quite nicely with this kind of body swap thing I'd been talking about, and that kind of format. Yeah, I don't know, I guess I just sort of wrote it with you in mind, so I knew I wanted you for it. And then I realised, well, I need to cast this other character. I was I need to do auditions, and I hate doing them alone because, I don't know, it just feels a bit sad when you're can you come
to my house and read my script?
Oh no, but that's always, I hate that.
Yeah.
I asked our friend Rebecca Hewitt to come along.
Also known as Lovely Becky.
Lovely Becky. If you've ever seen the Colour TV logo at the end of something, that pretty much means that Becky produced it. That's what that means.
No one else.
She worked on Jack and Dean of All Trades. She worked on Hare and Brimstone, PJ's thing. She was the producer on Playground, Bertie and I's upcoming film.
She's done Jack and Dean live as well. Then this comes into, again, the theatre side of it. She trained at RADA, so she's got a very theatrical background as well, and has done a lot of live theatre as a director.
She'd never tell you that, though. She's very modest as a lady. She's very
She's very good.
So she also is known for working in casting, basically. That's the thing that excites her the most. So I was like, hey, I'm casting this thing, do you want to come along? The more we were doing it, I was like, she was giving really good notes as we were going through the auditions, and I was like, I think I want her to be a script editor on this as well, because obviously inherently, and I'll talk about this in a sec, but gender is such a big part of this that I was I think I want a woman's perspective on this as well. I think that's going to be really important. And the more we did it, I was like, I think I also want her to direct this with me. I'm kind of curious from your end. Obviously, we were working on a character that you were playing essentially a woman. A lot of people kind of asking what was your kind of process with that? How did you approach that? Because I know how I was thinking of it, but I'm kind of curious from your end, what was that process for you?
I was playing a cisgendered woman who had to suddenly woke up in the body of a male.
Yeah. What's really interesting was I remember very early on being now obviously a lot of these themes really tie in to the gender themes that trans people are gonna be affected by, and I think that's a really interesting component, and I think that there's certainly things to be drawn. I'll give you a good example. The whole sequence about shoulders was based on a conversation I had with a trans man very anecdotally, who was saying that like one of the biggest differences he felt was like when he was chatting, he felt like people gave him their shoulders, like people would turn towards him to chat to him, whilst in the past they'd maybe kind of chat but be facing away. There's a lot that was drawn from either stories or chatting to or research within the trans community, but a thing I wanted to make so clear, and it's a thing I kind of stressed, I think, both to you and Emma, was like, this shouldn't be treated as a trans story. I want to make it about how generally cisgendered women are treated in society versus generally how cisgendered men are treated in society.
I basically read the script and found the bits that related most to me as Dan, me as a person, and just thought about how I would feel, because I think we do have sort of shared emotions and shared experiences and shared feelings as human beings. I started to pay really close attention when I was hanging out with my female friends to how they held their body and how they said certain words and how they expressed emotion beyond just the dialogue and how I was going to approach it. It was more about the sort of the wider context of the physicality and actually how Helen lives every day. I went costume shopping with Becky once, and while we were there, we weren't choosing clothes that I would choose. We were choosing clothes that Helen would choose because she thinks this is how men look best. I was growing my hair out for this thing, and we were talking about how I was desperate to have all my hair cut off, and Hazel was like, I like it a bit longer. All of these women are saying they prefer slightly longer hair on the men in their lives, and actually when boyfriends go and get haircuts, they're like, oh, it's a shame because I quite like the length. So that was another conscious thought. Whether or not I had a beard was a thought, because Becky was saying that she didn't think she'd be able to feel facial hair, so she'd want to get rid of it all every single day just to feel a little bit more comfortable in the skin that she is having to live in.
That's the important thing. I think for all that it's making commentary about a much wider thing, it's like at the end of the day, you're playing a character. And in the writing, in the directing, it may symbolise bigger things. But I think what was important for you was to dial it back, to not think about that bigger commentary, to not think of any of that, and to just make it a singular experience. And so, like, it's interesting you picked up on the costume thing, because it was like, that was a big thing with Becky. I was like, look, Dan's now your Ken doll. and so that's why we kind of convinced you to shave your beard.
Yeah, which I hadn't done in 3 years.
How was that?
I had a beard solidly. I have a beard trim. I don't, because I feel like when I shave, I don't have a chin. So my face looks a little bit sort of like whipped cream. There's no definition or anything like that.
A lot of people in the comments will disagree with you. There are a lot of like, damn.
But again, though, it goes back to... This is interesting because it goes back to...
I kind of like you as a former woman in the body.
But it's interesting to think, actually, this is how I feel comfortable in my skin. This is how I feel I look good. In a weird way, putting myself out of my comfort zone and having slightly longer hair than I would like, and shaving my face and wearing buttons up in a way that I think makes my appearance not as good as it could be, forced me out of my comfort zone. And in this moment, in these monologues, Helen is incredibly uncomfortable.
I know when we were workshopping it, you were talking a lot about using like your mug as like an anchor, and just like kind of the way you were kind of sat at the table was a little more contained. And then obviously the flip side of this is that you've then got Emma, and I wanted her space to be a lot more open and a lot more kind of, so she had the space to kind of man spread a bit. And another thing that people were very curious to ask about was essentially like the opening, where, you know, very graphically talking about like periods, and that was always sort of the opening tableau that I kind of wanted to do, which was essentially just this notion of being mansplained what a period was in a slightly like, this has never been talked about before kind of way.
I am blowing your mind. Is that amazing? Like let me
come here, Natalia.
Like, yeah, basically it's like for the uninitiated, here's how it goes. And yet most of what Jamie's saying has come from female friends of yours.
That's partly because I wanted to make sure what I was saying was absolutely accurate, because it would be fucking ironic if like I got that wrong. So I think I sent a message to like Dodie, Lucy, Hannah, Cambria, Hazel, Crystal. I think that was my research.
What is your opening gambit?
Yeah.
Hi, Can I ask you about your menstrual cycle?
Give me one sec. Odd request, can you please give me a very detailed explanation of the various stages of your menstrual cycle as you experience them? Particular focus on pains and how it affects you emotionally. I'm after a more personal / anecdotal account as opposed to a medically detailed one. Hashtag research.
I was going to say, did you even give them, hey, I'm writing a script?
No,
I was
no.
wondering. You just went straight in with, so tell me about the pain that you experienced.
All of them. I think I just know them well enough and they did their maths. But
Did Hazel just be like, fuck off?
Hazel's the only one who didn't tell me. Hazel's like, I'm not fully comfortable speaking about this.
What was wrong with her that day?
She had a cold.
Okay, right, yeah.
For example, the drop in estrogen, I think that's what it is literally something Dodie said word for word. Like, Dodie didn't even drop a beat. She was just like...
So it came out and for the first 20 minutes, all the comments were, I don't get it, question mark. I liked this, but what does any of it mean?
Right.
And then about 20 minutes later, the same people will come back going, oh, I get it now, I've got it, I understand.
Yeah.
But for that first 20 minutes, I was on edge. How did you feel?
That's exactly what I thought would happen. I said to Hazel, like, I was like, this is so different to what I usually do, and it's so, like, it's not comedy at all.
No.
I think of myself as a YouTuber, but I put it so down on the list of, like, stuff that I would call myself, right? And, like, I love YouTube. I think YouTube is an amazing medium. But I think first and foremost, I want to do stuff that appeals to me before I start thinking about how that's appealing to, let's
growing
say,
your channel.
To growing my channel, which is a really important thing for me. I, like, actively said to Hazel before I put it online, I was like, I want to lose some subscribers from this. I want to make something that I like and that my peers like. And I think that it's so easy to think about an audience and to...
This is a thing, but this ties into
them.
every element of every question every YouTuber ever gets asked at a convention, which is like, what's the best way of growing your audience, growing your channel? Whereas, like, actually, when you make anything, you always want to appease or please the people who are on a level with you, rather than looking to try and find someone who you don't know. Because these are the people who are going to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's all that matters to me. As long as Paul Neefsey likes it. and that was exactly it. I was like, I want to make something that people are going to have to watch twice. Like, because views, no. Because I was like, I want something that's a bit more challenging. I'd always wanted to challenge myself to make an anticlimactic ending. And I'm just like, you have to be so brave to finish a film the way No Country for Old Men ends. I'm not there yet. I'm still at the, like, I need to be like, whoa!
You need a final point.
I was like, I want to dip my toe in that water. I wanted something that just took a little more brain power, something that took a little analysing, something that didn't just give you the answer, something that you were actively thinking about, something you were engaging with. And yeah, it was so rewarding to see that, like, initially people were like, what's this? And then, like, yeah, like,
they would think about it
upon second viewing, people came back and were like, it's a really different film second time round.
I like films and stories that don't end. And part of what made this so interesting and so appealing to me, aside from the fact that you just gave it to me and that was lovely, was the fact that this is something that takes place after the event of a movie. Like, I am always wondering... So I just watched Sleepless in Seattle. What the fuck happens to those people? Like, I want to know what happens next. Like, I'm always interested, not in that I want to see a sequel, just that life continues, and this was very much a film about how life has continued.
I love doing stuff that's set way after it's interesting. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I always like different examples would be like, friend like me, when I tell people what the premise is, I'm always like, yeah, it's about this kid that's got a genie and he uses his first 2 wishes, but he doesn't use his last one. Oh, that sounds like a really good story. Yeah, it's set like 10 years after that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's always like, how that's left people. When you make a film about something, it's what makes it not necessarily about the things that happen in the room and actually about the wider story. Because, like, you look at the original Jurassic Park, it's like, really, it's a story about people preparing themselves for parenthood. Yeah. Really. And then you look at the most modern one and it's like, it's about dinosaurs fighting. People will misinterpret that as like a wanky, like, oh, they didn't even make their mind up. Well, actually, no, I think it's more interesting because it makes you think about it more. The moment you give someone just exactly what they want, they then go, oh, okay, cool. Like, you don't remember happy endings as well as you remember sort of conflicting ones.
Yeah, because ones that made you think as you
Whiplash is a good example of that. Right. Like, it's just like, you want to get people thinking as the film ends.
You said you, like, consider YouTuber fairly low on your list of things that you are. What part of you is at the top of that list?
I'd say I'd have to give it to a writer above anything. I think it's, for me, the most important part of any film. I think a good script can be done badly, but I think
a bad script can be done...
Well, I don't know.
Do you think?
Maybe. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if the script's bad, the script's bad. Like, I don't think you can really go much from elsewhere. So, just in the sense that I think that is what the core of a film is. What you're trying to say, what you're doing with this film, like what effect this is going to have on people. I think so much of that comes down to the script. I love writing and directing. I think I'm a slightly better writer than I am a director. I think. Depends. I think I'm good at directing actors. I think visually I've still got a lot to kind of learn. I've got my, like, what I prefer, but I would say that I'm much more willing to leave visual stuff to someone like Kieran and get his ideas and then work off that. Very rarely do I go to Kieran, I've got a really distinctive visual style and need you to come and match this. More often than not, I'll tell him the story and get his ideas and then work off that.
You, correct me if I'm wrong, haven't directed anything that doesn't at least have a co-written by you credit.
Yeah.
Is that conscious, or is that just that if someone were to hand you a script that was completely written by them, you wouldn't feel as personal to it?
I think I'd almost write something, have a really good idea of it, and then hand it over to a director that I really trust. For me to be like, yeah, I'm going to totally hand this over, and I'm now not involved with directing at all, it would almost have to be someone that I'm a huge fan of. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would
don't already have a built relationship with.
Right. It would almost have to be like, this person's phenomenal, I trust them with everything, I'm going to give them everything. I'd feel very like FOMO-y if it was.
And yet, this is kind of like a separate industry. Bruno Mars was writing songs and then he didn't want people to sing them, and then a fellow songwriter was just like, man the fuck up, like, get over it. That's just how the industry works. Could you write a script and then just let it go off into the ether and have it attached to a director, or maybe the director will change? Or
I could try, but like, honestly, it would again be one of those things where it's like, I would be like, can we co-direct it? It's honestly down to the fact that, like, when you have some confidence in your own ability, especially if you're writing something and you have a very specific thing in mind, like, you want to make sure that what you've put into it is expressed onto the screen. At the moment, it's like, I think we're at a stage where if ever we've been in that situation, it's always been just like, would there be any disadvantage if I were to also direct it? Like, surely we could do that as well. Having co-directed a lot in the past, I think that's like a really helpful thing, to have as many kind of eyes on it that you trust, basically.
There were some people when we went to MCM, many of whom had watched it on the train that day.
Right.
My personal feeling with this film is this is one that I don't even think you should watch on a laptop. Ideally, I want you to settle down, evening time, lights out, light a couple candles if you have them, lights quite low. If you can connect it to your TV and just get comfortable and watch it, and give yourself over to it, that's ideal prime watching territory.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm pretentious, so I wish everyone watched stuff like that. Twice now I've got to watch my stuff on a huge cinema screen and was just like, this is so nice. Because that's how I like to watch films. Yeah. That's the big key difference. Like, it's like, I love to go and see a film in the cinema if I can. Like, I think it's a whole different experience. I think, at the very least, I would like people to watch it on full screen. Because I think I don't like seeing the bar go along. No. That's the most demoralising thing. Yeah. Like, imagine going to see a film in the cinema and it's just like, oh, okay, with that far
range. It is that thing where the second you check your watch, you've lost, the film's lost you. If you're looking for the time.
Absolutely. I think when you lose your perspective of time when you're watching something, that's like one of the highest forms of compliment you can give to a film. Because it's like, I forgot the real world. Like, that's nice. And so with that in mind, it's like, if you're watching something on your mobile whilst you're also making food and you're also doing that, like, that's great for certain kind of like podcasts, like stuff like that.
My vlogs, I don't care.
Yeah, nobody cares. But like
do you write knowing that it's going to go on this medium, this platform, and take that into account in terms of how you approach a story, or do you just write it as though it were going to be on a big screen?
Generally, I don't think about the medium that much. Like, I think when you're writing something, some people will. Like, some people absolutely will. And I don't even... Like, Tom Scar is a very good example of that, where, like, he thinks about what will do well online, because he literally runs a business where he pays, like, 3 people's wages. Like, I don't. And so I kind of, in a sense, have the luxury, and I will be absolutely clear that I do think of it as a luxury, that I don't have to worry about that kind of thing. And so for me, it's like, I can kind of make what I just want to make. In my head, I love the idea that it's being played on TVs or screens, but like at the end of the day, if someone's watching on the mobile because that's like all they've got, like I'm not gonna complain, but it's just like I think it will be a slightly lesser experience for it. But I think all filmmakers have that.
Yeah.
Like you listen to Tarantino and he's like, digital projections just not
Right.
the same as film reel. Like I think that's just a very like archaic, pompous thing that I totally relate to.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I made a big thing. Like, can you look at it properly?
Yeah.
Telling stories, eh?
I think that's probably it.
Don't be afraid of leaving some questions.
Yeah,
It's
leave some
like we
questions.
can
Sammy will be in the
fire 'em
comments. I'll be in the comments. Also, go unsubscribe from Sammy.
That's really funny.
Yeah. Thank you for coming and talking. Thank you
Yeah,
for
good
putting me in a
chat.
film.
Well, I'm glad it's meant something, you know? Like, you talked about doing a monologue and that being like a standalone thing, and I hope there's more meaning in like actually putting it in something a little bigger with more of a context that allows itself to have a more emotional impact. And I think you've done yourself very proud on it. I think you've done really well. A lot of the comments, like a lot, not just like literal comments, but like a lot of the talk has been like, yeah, like I think you've done yourself proud. So I hope it was good for you.
It was great for me. What's next?
Playground,
Which
is a film I'm
coming
doing
soon.
with wrote and directed with Bertie. It's got Chris Kendall in
Well, that'll
it.
be fresh for you, Bertie and Chris. Thanks for watching.
Goodbye now.
Goodbye now.
Thank you for your trust and support and intelligence.